Okay, start tayo.
And pakilala na muna kita. Okay, third years. So for this afternoon, we will have a lecture on the Philippine health situation. This will be the other side of the Philippine health situation. For the official and on record data on the Philippine health situation, we have your textbook on community medicine. You will see all about the official records on the textbook. But what is beyond those records? What is beyond those numbers? And what is the true situation with regards to Philippine health? Ito yung ipapakita sa atin ngayong hapon ni Dr. Chin. Okay, so, pakilala ka muna si Doc Chin. Doc Chin is a guest lecturer for our department through the years. Every year, lagi namin siyang ini-invite para mag-lecture ng Philippine health situation kasi gusto siya ng mga students. So, make the most out of the lecture ni Doc Jean. Tanong kayo mamaya sa kanya. Marami kayong matututunan sa kanya. So, to introduce Doc Jean, and Doc Jean is a graduate of the UP College of Medicine class of 1993 through its a 7-year intermed program. He was awarded the U Greenwood Award for Outstanding Community Service upon graduation. Dr. Chin is a healthcare provider. He underwent residence training in community medicine and worked for various community-based health programs in Mindanao for 11 years. He worked with peasant and indigenous peoples communities on issues pertaining to health, human rights, genuine agrarian reform, and sustainable development. So matagal siyang nag-practice sa Mindanao. So part siya nung Health Bukidnon tsaka yung kasama Bukidnon sa Mindanao. And doon niya rin nakilala yung wife niya sa Mindanao, sa Bukidnon. Doc Jean finished a certificate course on global health at the University of Tampere in Finland, and he is a faculty of global health of the University of Tampere in Finland. He also worked as a research associate for the National Telehealth Center of UP Manila, and briefly headed its telemedicine team, focusing on the use of information and communications technology to bridge gaps in healthcare, improve health outcomes, and achieve equity in health. He also published numerous research papers in Acta Medica and the Philippine Family Physician Journal. So, Dr. Chin is a researcher. Parang nawala yung aking mga nasa taas. Ayan. Dr. Chin is also an educator. He is a faculty of the Department of Family and Community Medicine and the Department of Social Medicine at UP College of Medicine. He's the Vice Chief of the Community-Oriented Medical Unit, and he's also the Chapter President of the All UP Academic Employees Union in UP Manila. Dr. Chin is a health advocate and a decision maker. He's the former Vice Chair of the Health Alliance for Democracy, training consultant of the Women's Health Care Foundation and Gender Sensitivity, a health consultant of Initiatives for Dialogue and Empowerment through Alternative Legal Services Incorporation, or IDEALS, providing health education on COVID-19 among the urban poor of Quezon City. He's also a good communicator. He recently helped set up the Second Opinion PH, an internet-based alternative voice on the COVID-19 pandemic, and also part of Salika Bayan from Kodaw Productions. Artista rin si Doc Jean. So, meron din siyang movie, yung Diagnosing Poverty. Ayan, kasama niya yung kanyang wife. NSC, a true community leader, and part of all this community-based health program in Mindanao, the Archdiocesan Health Cagayan City, sa Peninsula Health Extension Program, the community-based health program of Butuan City, the community-based health program of Iligan City, and all of these are community-based health programs that provide health training services and capability programs to grassroots and rural communities. So yung lecture sa inyo next week na mga community-based health program, kasama si Doc Chin doon. He is an educator, a distinguished and sought-after speaker, the epitome of a true community medicine practitioner, a true 7-star physician, our idol doctor of the masses. So students, let us all give a warm welcome of applause to Dr. Jean Alzona Nitro, for his lecture on the Philippine health situation.
Right. Magandang hapon.
Ayan.
Magandang
Jean?
hapon sa ating lahat at maraming salamat, Sir Ronnie. Parang pinaparangalan na ako doon. Na buhay pa ako. It was too long. I don't think I deserve that much. But thank you for the ano. Napansin ko lang habang mahaba yung yung presentation, yung pagpapakilala sa akin, bumabata yung picture ko lumuluma. At any rate, magandang hapon sa ating lahat, and I'm very honored to be once again invited by the Department of Preventive and Community Medicine to talk to you about the national health situation, or certain aspects of it. Hindi natin matatalakay about 1.5 to 2 hours yung buong situation ng Pilipinas. But I will share with you my slides. Yeah, kita ba?
Yep, kita.
Okay. So, alam naman natin, sa med school, kahit 3 lang yung brain cells natin, nauubos pa rin yan habang mahaba ang panahon. So, kung naman, January pa lang, aramdam na natin ang naasahan natin papahirap na mga gawain sa loob ng Kolehiyo ng Medisina. Now, before I proceed, I want to talk to you about certain things that we should put aside as a given already para hindi na natin pag-usapan later. So these things include, one, health is a fundamental human right. So hindi na natin di-discuss yan. It's a given. Dapat ang pagtingin natin sa healthcare system, isa yan, ang pagtingin natin sa kalusugan at ang sistemang kumakalinga sa kalusugan natin ay nakabatay sa pagtingin na health is a human right. Pangalawa, ang definition ng health ay hindi lang yung kawalan ng sakit. It's not just the absence of infirmity or disease, but more of the complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Titignan natin physical, mental, at social. So 3 aspeto yun. Again, itong yung health is a right at saka yung definition of health, given na yan, hindi na natin pagtatalunan yan. So I want to put this aside. But the third one, I think, is something that we also need to address. The world is getting smaller with the advent of information communication technology. I mean, you can have real-time conversations with somebody across the world. Pero habang lumiliit ang mundo, yung napag-iiwanan ng lugar ng teknolohiya ay talagang lumalayo na. So while the world is getting smaller, the gaps between the rich and the poor, those who have and those who don't have, are getting wider. And those gaps are not making our world better. They're not making our world better for anyone. Kasi yung gaps na yan ay kailangang harapin natin. Pero kung hindi natin kikilalanin na may ganyang gaps, at magpapatali tayo, halimbawa sa mga salitang health equity, then we're missing the whole point. So, for this afternoon, let me share with you a brief discussion on the Philippine healthcare system. Yakap, UHC, bukas at iba pang dinodog show ng mga DOH leaders. Yung entitled presentation. Diskusyon to sa usapin ng Philippine healthcare system. Now, sana kung may mga tanong kayo later, itanong nyo lang sa akin, sasabihin kung matapos na. Alright, so dahil tayo ay nasa isang pamantasan, dahil tayong learning objectives. And these are the 4 learning objectives. One is to describe the general features of the Philippine healthcare system and analyze, number 2, analyze the underlying problems, healthcare system natin. Marami yan. At pupukusan lang natin yung pinakamamahalaga. And then, request sa akin, at ito yung medyo isa pang aspeto ng healthcare system natin dahil umiinog, right now, our healthcare system is being driven by universal healthcare law. And we have to see how it's being implemented and where we're headed. And then maybe at the end, you can reflect on your role as medical students in terms of our national situation. So let's begin by talking about. So madalas makikita niyo itong reference na to, no? DOH na naglalabas, it's based on a study in the United States in October 2014. Yung socioeconomic factors daw ay 40% na nag-apekto sa kalusugan. Physical environment 10%, health behaviors 30%, and yung healthcare 20% lang. Kung ibabangga natin to sa definition of health, you will see that yung first part, what health is composed of about 80%. Ito yan social determinants of health. Actually, yung health behaviors pa nga, debatable pa yan. Because those are still socioeconomic factors. Kasi yung choices mo, let's say, in your diet, bakit pinipili ng mahihirap uminom ng 3-in-1 coffee? Kasi mas mahal. Na yung 3-in-1 coffee, tas-tas ng sugar, so magkakadiabetes sila. Pero we live in a sachet economy. So, wala naman talaga silang choice. No, mas mahal bumili ng tingi-tingi na kape, sukal, kaysa bumili ng 3-in-1 coffee. Bakit kumakain ng high salt diet ang mga Pilipino? Kasi yun ang mura. Bakit mahilig tayo sa junk food? Kasi mas mura yan kaysa kumain ka ng healthy. And those of you who are trying to eat healthy, it's really more expensive. Lalo kung bibili ka ng gulay ngayon, napakamahal. So, when we're talking about our healthcare system, know that it's only about 20% of what makes us healthy. And it's only the second part of the definition of health that we're talking about, which is the absence of disease or infirmity. So, tatanong natin, kamusta naman ang mga Pilipino ngayon? Ano ba kalagayan ng mga Pilipino? Doon tayo magsimula. At kung titignan natin, mayaman ang Pilipinas. Sa dami ng kinukurakot sa Pilipinas, recently na-expose sa DPWH at yung mga contractors nila, ang yaman, may pera We're not just rich in money. We're not just awash with money. We're awash with minerals and natural resources. Kaya nga lahat ng mining companies na pupunta sa Pilipinas. Kaya nga ang China gustong kunin yung West Philippine Sea. Right? Pero bakit nakapagtaka? Naghihirap ang mga Pilipino. And that has been going on, hindi lang sa administrasyon ni Marcos Jr., kundi so many presidents ago, na patuloy na may nominal increase sa sweldo natin, pero hindi naman nararamdaman. Kung tatandaan nyo yung mga magulang natin, or hindi magulang, siguro, so, tandaan natin, yung mga lolo't lola natin, ilan ang average family size nila? 10, 13, 12? Ang lalaki. Tapos single income lang. And yet, nabubuhay sila. Nabubuhay yung buong pamilyang yun, nakakatapos ng pag-aaral. Kasi kinakaya ng single income buhayan na hindi maranya, not luxuriously, but comfortably enough for them to go through school. And over time, lumit ng yung family size ng Pilipino. Naging 6, naging 4. And over time din, yung isang single income, naging 2 na, parehong spouses na, nagtatrabaho. And yet, hindi pa rin sustain. Umabot na sa punto na isa na lang. At yung mga bagong henerasyon na yun, yung mga batang henerasyon na yun, halos ayaw na mag-asawa. Gusto na lang mag-alaga ng aso at pusa, di ba? And the sad part is, kung sino nang mayaman sa Pilipinas, siya pang yung mayaman. At yung mahirap, lalong naghihirap. Look at the picture on the left. It shows that even during the pandemic, 2023, 2024, immediately after that, lumaki pa yung pera ng top 3 richest Filipinos. Like almost 30%, 29%. Right? Tapos yung remaining 7 richest Filipinos, tumaas pa rin ng 8% yung accumulate, yung wealth nila. Pero yung ordinary Pilipino, 7% ng Pilipinas. Malamang sa nominal wage increase pa yan. Lumiliit talaga ang halaga ng sahod. And then just picture from Ibon just shows you the wage gap. Yung red is the minimum wage at yung green ay yung family living wage per region. Now, kung titignan yung average, ang average is 487 na minimum wage across the Philippines. Tapos ang average family living wage is 1,225. So make up talaga ng 730. Ang laki-laki. So paano mabubuhay ang isang pamilya regardless of how many kids they have kung ganito ang kalagayan ng Pilipino? Right? At bakit hirap sa buhay si Aling Maria? Kasi yun na nga, kahit dalawa silang mag-asawa, nagtatrabaho, halos hindi sumasapat yung kanilang kita. Sa gastusin mula sa pagkain, sa renta, sa mga utilities. Now, inequities in life manifest as inequities in health. Kung malaki ang lintang ng mga tao sa usapin ng panglipunang katayuan, mas lalong malaki yung lintang nila, yung gap nila sa pag-access ng health. And kitang-kita to sa usapin ng maternal. If you look at the data in maternal care, the richest Filipinos would have prenatal, an average of 5, almost monthly prenatal checkups. Pero the poorest, halos pupunta na lang yan pag manganganak. Tapos limited din yung kanilang access kung saan sila magpapatingin. At wag na natin pag-usapan yung postnatal care. Tignan na lang natin yung kalagayan ng pabelya, anong average daily, nila dyan, deliveries. Pumapalo pa rin ng 100 sa isang araw para silang pabrika ng bata. And yet, ang dami-daming pera na nauubos po saan-saan infrastructure. Pero yung pabelya, nananatiling ganon at kulang sa budget. Now, these are just data. You can check in, you can confirm it, but you can check. Sabi nga ni Sir Ron, meron naman kayong data sa textbook niyo. Pero ang nakakalungkot, kung ikukumpara sa buong Asia, kulela tayo. We're lagging behind. I mean, Singapore has single digits of the MMR and IMR. Right? At ang masakit, maraming Pilipino namamatay na lang na hindi nakikita ng isang health professional. So, uso pa rin yung verbal autopsy. Magre-report yung kamag-anak, namatay na po si ganito. Tapos, yung gagawa ng death certificate, tatanong niya sa ano kayo namatay, no? Na hindi naman din alam yung. And that's what's really sad about the country. Now, when we talk about the healthcare system, we're talking about basically what the World Health Organization framework provides us. So, meron kang 6 building blocks or six foundations of your healthcare system at meron kang outcomes. So, you have service delivery, health workforce, health information, access to medicines and new technologies, health financing, and governance. All of these should provide access and coverage that's both quality and safe. Tapos, it would need to improve health outcomes, responsiveness, etc., etc. Pero kung titingnan mo, kulang na kulang to. Bakit? Anong wala dyan? Pinag-uusapan nga natin 80% of our health is not based on the health system. So, asan? Asan halimbawa yung public health? Asan yung health promotion? And these are important aspects of a health system that would ensure the health of Filipinos. Diba? So, mamaya pupuntahan natin yung dinudogso ng DOH. Ito, diba? Health services. Gustong-gusto talaga nila sabihin, zero balance billing na, di ba? Dati yan, no balance billing, binago lang yung pangalan. Right? But in how many hospitals are these being implemented? So, kunti-kunti. We have over 100 million Filipinos. And this is how many hospitals across the country. Kulang na kulang. Kulang na kulang sa supplies, kulang na kulang sa pasilidad. Saan ba pupunta ang mga pasyente Pilipino? This is actually based on a DOH presentation. According to them, only 3% of Filipinos actually seek help. That's 3.4 million of 114 million Filipinos. At dun sa nagpapatingin, pumapasok sa healthcare system natin, 55% ang pupunta sa private sector. So dito sa picture na to, malalaman nyo na we have a two-tiered healthcare system. Meron kang private healthcare system at saka meron kang public healthcare system. And those two are running parallel. That's why we describe our healthcare system as two-tiered. May public at may private. Sa public, sumusunod sila sa referral system. Sumura sa health center, pupunta sa district hospital, tapos sa city or provincial hospital. Sa private, walang pake. Diba? Pwede kang pumunta sa espesyalista agad, whether it's private clinic niya or sa hospital. Pero dahil magastos sa hospital, sa private sector, diretso sa espesyalista. Kaya nakikita nyo, 67% primary level facility. Pero hindi ibig sabihin primary care providers. Yan. Yan yung mga espesyalista. Inubo, pulmonologist. Sumakit sa ulo, neurologist. Diba? Hindi ganun sa public sector. Kailangan titignan ka muna para masiguro kailangan mo ng tertiary care. Diba? Yung iba pupunta pa rin sa hospital dahil sa kakulangan din ng hospital, punong-puno, napipilitang pumunta sa primary. Now, ano nang prioridad ng ng DOH. Diba? So meron silang, nakikita natin, sabi ng Ibon, 16 out of 17 regions lack hospital beds. Again, kahit ang Ibon, ang tingin sa healthcare system ay hospital, tama, sa hospital. Pero kung titignan natin, kahit marami ang government hospitals at mas maraming private hospitals at mas konti ang government hospitals. Yung government hospitals kasi malalaking medical centers. 700 bed capacity, 1,500 bed capacity, 1,000 bed capacity. Yung malalaking hospital. Samantalang yung mga private, hindi ganun kalalaki, pero dispersed sila. Kung titignan lang natin yung private hospital beds at government beds, talagang isipin mo, yung dami nga, lamang na lamang ng private hospitals. Pero anong klaseng beds ba yan? Anong klaseng hospital ba yan? Maraming private hospitals ay hindi naman tertiary hospitals. Samantalang maraming government hospitals ay malalaking tertiary hospitals, specialty hospitals. So magkaiba yung quality. Tapos meron pang bagong ng DOH, yung bukas, kung narinig nyo yun, ano? Bagong urgent care and ambulatory service. Wow. Okay. Ganda pakinggan, ano? Pero ang ginagawa nun, nag-offer ng clinics, ng mobile clinics sa mga regions. Mamaya pupunta natin bakit hindi tama yun. Maganda yun kung gusto mo na magpakita ng tao. But if you want to really address the problems, then that's not it. So, ano pa? No? Meron silang barangay health stations na kakulangan. Sabi ng Ibon, yan ang mahalaga. Kulang ng barangay health stations. Kasi ang sakit at ang kawalan ng kalusugan nagsisimula sa komunidad. So, dapat doon tayo nakatutok. Iniiwasan ng sakit, at kung magkakaroon ng sakit, nagsisimula pa lang, na-address na. That's how health works, right? We want to keep people healthy. And when they do get sick, we want to address their illness or their condition at the soonest possible time. We don't want them to reach the hospital. So in countries where healthcare systems are really good, they don't have that many hospitals. But they do have excellent community-based facilities. Kasi doon na nila na-address yung no. Ito yung sinasabi kong bukas, nagtayo ng 50 bagong urgent care and ambulatory service centers, bukas centers across 35 provinces. Dagdagan sa malasakit center. Mamaya titignan natin, ano yung ginagawa ng DOH and how does it align with the rest of the policies of government. Now, ang isang hindi ina-address ng DOH ay yung problemang dinudulot ng devolution. Because health under the local government code is fully devolved function. Dapat trabaho yan ng local government. So, bakit ka mag-offer ng bukas centers, ng mga na dapat ang health services ay hindi na function ng DOH? Kasi nakikita natin na habang lumalayo ka sa sentro, lumalala ang kalagayan ng pangkalusugan. And the DOH is aware of that. So the problem is there, they see it, but the solution is not to provide more health services that run parallel with the local government. Dapat tanungin natin, angkop ba, is devolution a concept that is appropriate for us now? Personally, I believe that devolution will work only if there is the necessary requirement of political maturity. Kung ang mga pinipili nating politiko ay kaya magsilbi ng inuuna ay yung kapakanan ng taong bayan. If they see health services as public good, then devolution will work. Pero ano ba nakikita natin kada eleksyon? Na lahat ng politikong tumatakbo may medicalism kanan. Pero habang nakaupo sila, hindi naman nila i-improve yung healthcare system. Sa akin, nasasakupan nila. So for many of the sitting politicians right now, and local government executives, including as far as the national government executive, health services is nothing more than something that deodorizes their administration. It's a token service they provide, and they need it. And classic din yung malasakit center. Hindi mo naman kailangan ng malasakit center kung tumatakbo ng maayos yung government services mo. Di ba ngayon pinag-uusapan din yung medical assistance for indigenous patients? Na, bakit may pera ang legislators para tustusan yung health needs ng mga may hirap na Pilipino? Bakit sila may guarantee letter? Kasi nagsusustain ng pagdating system. So ang pangit talaga. So devolution needs to be revisited and it needs to be honestly assessed kasi hindi siya nakatulong sa pagpapaganda ng sistema. Oh, health human resources, this has been dealt with so extensively. Kulang sa dami, kulang sa pagwelga. Let me just stress home some point. There is a so-called dearth of health workers. Kulang, walang doktor. Kulang sa doktor, kulang sa nurses. That's a given. Pero are we not producing enough? We are producing enough. We are producing enough doctors. We are producing enough nurses. Ang problem is, ayaw mag-hire ng gobyerno. Kanina pinag-usapan natin yung DTPB. I mean, bago pumasok yung mga scholars, alam mo na kung ilan ang lalabas after X number of years. So dapat expand mo na yung capacity mo to hire the people you actually require to serve you. Kasi kung di mo naman sila i-hire, bakit mo sila nire-require mag-serve sa Pinas? Ang labo nun eh. Kailangan siyang palaksin. Kailangan improve. Kasi hindi ka pwedeng nag-require na hindi mo naman sa isang kontrata na hindi mo naman kayang panindigan. That's what government has been doing for decades. In fact, the DTPB program is a stopgap measure. Pero naging siya na yung centerpiece program ng human resources ng DOH. Kaya nakakalungkot eh. Kasi 1993 pa siya in-implement, 92-93. Hanggang ngayon DTPB pa rin. Hindi naman tulong ng doktor sa Pilipinas. Hindi na rin kulang ng doktor na nananatilig sa Pilipinas. Ang kulang ng bilang ng doktor ay yung pinahire at hindi ng gobyerno. Hindi lang sa doktor, pati nurses. Ngayon, ayaw na nga mag-hire ng gobyerno. Ayaw pang magbigay ng benepisyo. Madalas kailangan pa ipaglaban. This is the picture on the right is very telling. 2024 pa nag-allocate ng pera para sa allowances noong COVID-19. Imagine nyo. Ang tagal-tagal ng natap 2020 pa yung COVID. 4 years later, pinag-uusapan pa rin yung paano nag-allocate ng pera dun sa benefits na dapat nakuha nila. Yung pananong nagsaserve sila ng para sa COVID. Yung HEA, no? Yan, benefits din yan. Kailangan pa ipaglaban talaga ng health workers. Hindi kusang binibigay. And when you're in government service, you have to prove, it's so hard. You have a stack of paperwork. You have to prove that you actually went and served. No? Tapos, gusto pa ng DOH, nang bibigyan lang ng allowances o benefits, yung mga actual tumitingin na pasyente. E paano naman yung papatakbo ng labs mo? Nagpapatakbo ng logistics sa hospital. Hindi naman tatakbo yung lahat ng yan kung walang tao. Pero ayaw lang pagbigyan ng benepisyo. Dahil yun ay nagtatrabaho rin sa pang-COVID. So, saliwa talaga mag-isip. At pag nagtrabaho ka naman outside the ambit of government patronage, halimbawa, katulad ko, nagtrabaho ka sa NGO, nagpunta ako sa Bukidnon, sa Zamboanga Peninsula, sa Caraga, sa Socsargen, sa Central Mindanao, inikot ko lahat ng buong Mindanao. Pag hindi ka taga-gobyerno, ang tingin sa'yo, rebelde. Ang dali-daling magkagta. Lalo pa kung taga-State University ka, UP, PLM, ganyan. Sabihin, ang gagawa nyo dito? Rebelde siguro kayo, no? And why? Because government believes that our people should remain ignorant. Pag ang magsasaka o ang katutubo, nagsalita sa mga issue katulad ng karapatan nila or reforma sa lupa, it is something they should talk about. Kasi yun yung buhay nila. Or IPs talking about ancestral lands. O bakit yung IPRA ay pangit. I mean, dapat lang kaya nilang pag-usapan yan. Diba? Kasi yung sarili nilang buhay na karanasan. Pero, pag nagsalita na sila sa karapatan, rebelde na sila. Rebelde na, at kung sino man tuturo sa kanila, simbahan man yan, o NGO, rebelde na. Front tayo ng Communist Party. Bakit? Kailangan ba mga Pilipino? Kailangan ba mantitignan? I guess that's what politicians want to believe in. That's what government really wants to believe in. Because when Filipinos, citizens, remain ignorant and dumb, those in government can do as they please. And it's very dangerous for any government to have an informed empower people. Because then they will be taken to task. They will be held accountable. And yan yung iniwasan. So, the shortage of Filipino health workers is basically self-imposed. Kasi mas nakikinabang ng Pilipinas, ang gobyerno, sa pag-export sa kanila. Malaki yung remittances nila. Okay. Health financing, again, kulang sa halaga, kulang sa alokasyon, kulang sa wastong paggamit. Pero tingnan natin ito, no, 2021 budget. Ito yung 2021 budget, panahon ng pandemic. Pinatawad ko yung 2020 budget kasi in-enact siya, ginawa siya noong 2019, wala pang pandemic. Pero yung 2021 budget, lumaraga sana yung pandemic ng 2020. So you would think that they would put money in health, or at least in social services. Pero tignan nyo, yung 2021, sandamakmak yung 1.1 trillion yung budget, yung blue, ng DPWH. Yung budget ng health ay 202 billion. Okay, naintindihan ko yung budget ng social protection, 454 billion. Health, ang liit-liit. And combine, this is not even the budget of DPWH and all these infrastructures. So namamatay ng mga Pilipino, rumaragasa ng pandemya, nagtatayo pa rin tayo ng tulay, nagtatayo pa rin ng kasama. How dumb is that? Now, the 2025 DOH budget is 259 billion, which is 18% lower than the 2024 billion. Now, you've heard activists screaming their hearts out that the Philippines, in order to provide adequate services for Filipinos, should spend about 5% of GDP on health, total spending. We actually did that in 2023. We breached that. Nalagpasan na yung total health spending beyond 5% of the GDP. Pero kung titignan mo, yung components niyang total health spending, pinakamalaking component pa rin yung out-of-pocket. Lumaki pa by 8.5%. Yung government schemes, kasama na yung PhilHealth at DOH budget, ay 42% lang. Na nag-increase din ng 2.2%. Pero yung share ng voluntary healthcare payment, ito yung mga private HMOs, health insurance, yan ang lumaki ng malaki. 13%. An increase of 44.6%. Ano ibig sabihin? Papatungo tayo sa paglaking papel ng mga health insurance sa Pilipinas. Hindi nababawasin ang spending natin. So, aabot ang puntong pareho na tayo ng US na nagdidesisyon na anong healthcare service mo natin, ang kalaki, ay ang mga health insurance. We're going towards an insurance-based healthcare system. And the whole world knows that the United States is a classic example of big spending, poor outcomes, poor service delivery. Mainly because of the role of health insurance. Pero doon tayo pinipilit papuntahin. And wala talaga, no? Tignan nyo. Kahit ito sinasabi, increase in health expenditures do not correspond to decrease in out-of-pocket spending. Wala, hindi talaga lumili. Okay. PhilHealth. PhilHealth yung driver ng ating universal healthcare law. Pero tignan natin, sino ba ang nakikinabang sa PhilHealth? Kung titignan natin, if we divide the Filipino population in quintiles, the richest quintiles, ang taas ng coverage sa Canada as opposed to the lowest quintiles. 83.6. Dun sa pinakamayaman, 74.9 is the next richest. As opposed to the poorest, which is only 58.1%. In fact, we studied dati na yung poorest Filipinos, hindi nila ginapakinabangan ng PhilHealth dahil hindi sila pumapasok sa healthcare system. Kung pumapasok sa healthcare system ay yung second, yung near poor, yung second poorest quintile. So, are we really addressing the needs of Filipinos? Access to medicine, mahal pa rin, no? Buti pa ang gamot, mahal. Tayo hindi. And why are drugs expensive? Because the entire process, the entire industry is monopolized. Manufacturing is done by toll manufacturing and 80% of that is controlled by Interfil. Ano ba yung sabihin toll manufacturing? So drug companies no longer have factories in the Philippines. They just bring their ingredients, go to a toll manufacturer like Interfil and tell them, ito yung ingredients ko, gusto ko ng Coamoxiclav. Na ganito ang brand. Gagawa ang Interfil. Right? Kaya halimbawa, pwedeng sabihin ng sa packaging makita nyo, manufactured by Interfil for Pfizer. Ganun. Yung mga ganun. Now, that's manufacturing. Pagdating naman sa distribution, it really controls about 65 to 70%. So, napoproduce mo ngayon drugs mo, hindi naman umabot sa buong Pilipinas, useless din. Now, so may manufacturing ka, may distribution ka. The funny thing about Interfil and Zwillig is, they're sister companies. They're owned by the same people, owned by the same board. So, monopolized na ngayon dalawang aspects. Is pamayari, di ba? Or isang group pa ng papalit. Pagdating naman sa retailing, of course, may free drug. Pag wala yung gamot mo sa mercury drug, hindi yung gagawin. So, all of this says na, bakit napakamali ng gamot sa Pilipinas? Kasi nga, ang nagdidikta ng presyo sa Pilipinas is not a percentage of profit, it's not profit as a percentage of cost, but it's pricing based on what Filipinos are willing to pay for a product. Yun yung masakit eh. So, kung ang mga Pilipino, willing magbayad ng 5 piso para sa Biogesic, 5 piso ibenta ang Biogesic. Kahit ang generic 2 piso lang. At parehong kumikita yung dalawa. Silipin niyo mabuti yun. Bakit kayo bumibili ng Biogesic? Samantalang paracetamol ng generic ay less than half the price niya. At yung gumagawa ng generic, ay kumikita pa rin. Ibig sabihin, yung cost of production ng isang paracetamol, isang Biogesic, 8 piso. And yet, we're willing to pay for $5. Okay? Now, health informatics, ito madali lang kasi wala naman talaga ito. Likha lang ito ng mga Illuminati. No? I mean, we have a lot of electronic medical records. Right? So you have CHITS, you have, the biggest ones are CHITS, nagawa ng UP, at yung iClinicSys, nagawa ng DOH. But all of these, hindi siya interoperable. Ibig sabihin, si Manny Pangilinan, who bought all these hospitals as his own, meron siyang sariling health informatics na electronic medical records. But all of these medical records are not interoperable. It's when hindi sila pwedeng mag-usap. So pag ang records mo nasa iClinicSys, hindi siya pwedeng ma-access ng isang center na gumagamit ng chips. Bakit? Diba? Yung hardware na naayos para isang lang yung USB-C na lang lahat. Wala na po ano-ano pa. Bakit itong software, hindi ba na mapag-ayos, mapag-meet? Para kung ang datos mo na hospital ka sa isang government hospital na gumagamit ng iClinicSys at ang health center mo na may gumagamit ng chips, bakit hindi nila pwedeng coordinate yung datos? Yun talaga ang problema. And of course, wala naman talagang support at the bottom. Majority of health facilities are still paper-based. At kung talagang nag-uukot sa 3 araw, lalo sa Manila, kung saan nagtatali sila. And the saddest part about all of these data is that, the DOH requires data reporting, FHSIS. Monthly yan, binibigay ng lahat ng health facilities and government. And yet, what did we get from it? Binabalik ba yan ng DOH as something useful? It's useful information? Of course not. Wala sa nakukuha ito, pero report. Bakit? Why can't we have a health information system where what you report is returned to you in something useful? Kung hindi man every month, at least half a year, after 1 year, so that you can act on the data you provide. Diba? Walang ganun. And lastly, yung health governance. Nakakalungkot. Sino man ilagay mong Secretary of Health? Walang ginagawang matino. Now, kung titignan natin from 1998 to 2016 and even later on, in fact, 2011 to 2016, yun ang panahon ng Pinoy, nilabas na yung Universal Healthcare as a concept. Pero kung titignan niyo yung mula 1998 hanggang 2016, iisa lang ang laman ng mga health policy, health financing, health regulation, health services, governance. So, tignan nyo, from 1998 to 2004, tinanggal na nga yung public health programs. Tapos, nawala na siya totally kasi in-accept na ginamit na kunwari yung health systems framework ng WHO. So talagang tinanggal yung public health. Pero over time, laging nauna yung health financing. At hanggang ngayon, yung universal healthcare, it's a reform that's driven by health financing. Hindi siya, it's not a reform driven by a recognition that health is a right. In fact, there are provisions in the universal healthcare law that institutionalizes health inequity. Now, konting-konti talaga sa public health. Ano? In fact, yung TB natin hanggang ngayon, well, this is 2016, pero hanggang ngayon, kung tutuloy-tuloy mo yan, hindi naman nagbabago yan. Andyan pa rin halos yung incidence ng TB sa Pilipinas. In many countries, nawala na yung TB, bumalik na lang nung nagkaroon ng maraming immunocompromised conditions like HIV/AIDS. Pero sa Pilipinas, nagtatayo pa tayo ng building. Hanggang hindi natin matapos-tapos yung TB. Sabi nila social disease ang TB dahil karamihan nagkaka-TB ay mahihirap. Totoo naman. Pero hanggang ngayon, I guess, that's still true. Na talagang kung maraming mahihirap, hindi talaga masasolve ang tuberculosis sa Pilipinas. Yung bakuna, napakasimpleng bagay na dati ay nagagawa without even thinking about. Mga magulang nagpapabakuna ng anak nila automatically. But over time, dahil walang mataas na health information, health promotion, hindi nabibigyan diin yung halaga ng bakuna. Ngayon, nasa radar tayo ng WHO because of what? The rise in vaccine-preventable diseases. Pertussis, tetanus, measles. Pilipinas, isa sa mga sentro ng phenomenon. Kaya nakakalungkot. Now, under BBM, saan pupunta ang DOH? Well, nakakalungkot. Hindi mo lang tinago. Kailangan lang pagkukunwari kung gano'n kasi yung mga nasa DOH. No? Bawat buhay. Mahalaga. Wow. It's the same. You know, you repackage and you say it better, but it doesn't mean you're going to do a better job. Why? Because your sole purpose is to serve your principal. Make them look good. Make the country look like the president you're serving actually cares about you. At yan yun. We haven't seen any significant change in DOH policy, in DOH actions. Napagtaka nga, yung DOH secretary pumapayag na zero budget ang PhilHealth. Kung may puso ka para sa mahihirap, bakit ka papayag ng ganun? At alam mo naman, nag-grandstanding lang yung mga nayukaw na legislators because they're not going to public hospitals. They're not going to use their PhilHealth when they get sick. It's the poor who suffers most from that. Right? They don't give a shit. They don't care. It's grandstanding. Is zero budget ang PhilHealth? Mayabang din mo nga sa DOH. Sige, zero budget nyo, may pera pa kami. Who's caught in the middle? Who falls through the cracks? Yan yung masakit. So in sum, yung Philippine healthcare system natin, two-tiered na nga, disjointed pa. May private and public ka, tapos iba pa yung takbo from national to local. One is because of the role of big business in healthcare, and the other is because of the evolution. And again, this reflects on what kind of care we provide. Yung healthcare system natin nakafocus sa individual care, hindi public health, hindi populations. Kaya nga, hospital-based, doctor-centered, at specialist-led care. May private sector ka, pero unregulated but monopolized. At that governance is an instrument for political interests. Now, this is a really stupid question, but I have to put it. Is government doing enough? Sumasapat ba ang PhilHealth at Universal Healthcare Act, RA 11223? Tanong sa tingin mo. Diba? Under the WHO, babalikan natin, ano? Ito kasi WHO may problema rin. Nagpapalamon kasi sa World Bank. In 2014, the WHO actually formalized its partnership with the World Bank. After trying to resist, but since 1993, the World Bank has been the one determining health policy, not the WHO. Nagbago lang yun ng pandemic. Pero over time, wala na talagang role ang WHO sa health governance. Kasi kahit na yung mga policies niya, largely dictated na ng World Bank. Tingnan natin Why universal health coverage? Ang definition ng WHO sa universal health coverage or universal healthcare is everyone, every citizen should have access to the health services they need without risk of financial ruin or impoverishment. Tatagalugin natin, lahat ng tao ay magkakaroon ng serbisyong pangkalusugan na kailangan nila sa panahon na kailangan nila na hindi sila matatakot maghirap o mamuno. Now, you think about it, that's well and good. It's well and good. It's really good. But if you go back to the definition of health, nasan siya dun? Paano na siya sa absence of infirmity or disease? Hindi siya nag-uusap about health as the state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. In fact, it doesn't even talk about social well-being. It just talks about access to health services without risk of financial ruin. Again, pumasok pa yung pera. Now, yan na nga ang WHO. Ano pa ang translation sa Pilipinas? PhilHealth. Universal Healthcare Law driven by PhilHealth. At dahil may PhilHealth ang sentro na nagpapatakbo ng Universal Healthcare, lahat ng problema, all the problems attendant to PhilHealth are still there. Corruption, mismanagement, hindi na-address yan. Palit sa PhilHealth ng leadership, nawawala ba yun? Nawawala ba yun? Corruption? Kung hindi nawawala yung corruption, maaaring hindi sa taas ang problema. Hindi lang sa taas ang problema. Maaaring may talagang problema sa loob na ayaw galawin. Now, contentious issues. Lahat ng promoter kahit nga si J.D. Ejercito na supposedly author nitong batas na to, na hindi niya naintindihan yung batas na sinulat niya, eh kung ano-ano sinasabi na wala naman sa batas. Si J.D. Ejercito, pagpakikinggan niyan. I've been with him in several fora where he actually states that libre na lahat sa UHC law. Sinulat mo yung batas, hindi mo lang binasa. Because even this is from the website of PhilHealth. Sinasabi na hindi naman libre lahat. Diba? In fact, ang libre lang under UHC ay yung libre na ngayon sa health center. Na libre na kahit wala pa ng UHC. So, ano bago? Diba? So, ngayon may consulta package at yakap. Parang yung silbi ng yakap kung malamig naman, diba? Walang silbi. Diba? Yung yakap, ang yaman sa kalusugan program. It's just an extension of the consulta package. Right? It's the primary care services of DOH. So theoretically, under the law kasi, lahat ng Pilipino ay pwedeng magpa-sign up sa private or government primary care provider. So, pwede kang, hindi ka sa health center magpa-sign up. Pwede kang magpa-sign up sa favorite doctor. Basta accreditation siya ng DOH na primary care provider. Now, question, sino sa ordinaryong Pilipino ang nakakalam? So, anong ginagawa ng mga health centers niyan? Sinusunod din yung barangay, sinasabing sa amin po kayo magpa-sign up. Kasi para makakuha kayo ng libreng servisyo, para magpatuloy lang siya. Nawala yung choice because there's no health information about it. Walang massive information campaign na pwede kang magpa-sign up sa paborito mo, basta sa paborito mong doktor, basta primary care providers. Walang ganun. In fact, Filipinos, we have a co-faculty ng family med practitioner na nagugulat siya yung mga dating pasyente niya ngayon, sa kanya nakapalista. Kasi napalista na para sa kung sino-sino si ng doktor o kung sino-sino barangay health center. Kasi hindi man nila alam na pag kung may sign up ka pa doon, hindi ka na pwede magpatingin sa mga doktor. Pwede ka pa rin magpatingin, pero hindi ka na sasabihin. Walang ganun promotion, walang ganun discussion. Another contentious issue is yung nasa section 10 ng batas na may income ceiling at income floor. Kung ang income mo ay 10,000 or less, which is the income floor, ang babayad mo dapat ay 500 per month per PhilHealth. Magbabayad ka ng premium. Pero kung mayaman ka, 100,000 pataas, ang maximum na ibabayad mo ay 5,000. So, yung OFW na halimbawa ay diver sa Hong Kong, na ang kontrata niya sasabing ang sweldo niya equivalent sa 100,000, 110,000, may babayad niya 5,000 per month, which is 60,000 a year. Isang OFW malaking bagay. Pero si Manny Villar, o yung mga anak ni Henry C., Pag magbayad siya ng PhilHealth, 5,000 din babayad nila, 60,000. Kayo, kung nire-require kayo ng school nyo, na magbayad ng PhilHealth, zero income kayo. Pero babayad kayo 500 pesos. Saan hinugot yun? Diba? Now, dati, hindi ka kailangan mahirap na mahirap para humingi ng tulong sa PAGCOR or PCSO. I mean, this is the go-to of those, halimbawa, who have patients with cancer who require chemotherapy that is expensive. So even if you have a job and your regular income, you need additional money to buy for those treatment. Pero, ngayon, under the UHC law, lahat yan kukunin na ng PhilHealth. Ngayon, pag wala ka, nakuha ang tulong sa PhilHealth, hindi ka na pwedeng lumapit sa PCSO. Hirapan. So, let's summarize. What's the problem with the UHC law? One, it's still dependent on PhilHealth. And that alone is very telling. Two, there's no major policy shift. Ganun pa rin ang takbo ng gobyerno natin. Ganun pa rin ang takbo ng healthcare system natin. It pushes for equity supposedly. Health is a basic human right now as stated in the Constitution, sinasabi sa unang article niya. Pero pagdating niyo sa Section 9, sa second paragraph, sinasabi doon that those who are paying will have additional program benefits than those who are covered by government. Direct payers have additional program benefits. So paano naging equal yun? So ini-institutionalize niya yung inequality. Pangatlo, lalo niyang wini-welcome yung private for-profit industry players. May section sa batas na nagsasabing the DOH, PhilHealth, will come up with complementary programs together with HMOs and private health insurance. They will come up with complementary programs that will complement PhilHealth programs. Ibig sabihin, hindi man talaga sasagutin ng PhilHealth 100% ng gastos natin. So, kailangan kumuha ka pa ng additional private health insurance. Kaya sa inyo, yung mga parents nyo na nagtatrabaho sa kumpanya, meron na silang binabayarang PhilHealth, pero kumukuha pa rin yung kumpanya nila ng additional HMO. Diba? Additional health card. Bakit? Kasi yun yung nasa batas, kasi alam nga ng lahat na hindi naman sasagutin ng PhilHealth yung 100% na gasusin mo sa kalusugan. So bakit? Bakit ganun? Ano ba talaga pa po yun? So titignan natin, ang PhilHealth talaga, kung sa lengguwahe ng karamihan niya, ang PhilHealth ay parang pag mag-online shopping ka. Diba? Ano yung paraan para maka-online shopping ka na mabibili mas mura yung gusto mong bilhin, maghintay ka ng sale o gagamit ka ng I forget what it's called, it's like a coupon, di ba? Na para mas mura mo bilhin. Ganun ang UHC, ang PhilHealth. Coupon siya na magagamit po para hindi mahal yung gagastusin mo. Pero kung wala ka ng coupon, mahal pa rin yung gagastusin mo. Hindi nagbabago yung sistema natin. Hindi niya sinasagot bakit napakamahal ng healthcare sa Pilipinas. So, ewan ko kung napag-usapan niya na yung Alma Ata Declaration at yung Alma Ata Declaration of 1978 at yung Astana Declaration ng 2018. Kasi yun supposedly is primary healthcare vis-a-vis universal healthcare. Anong nawala? No? Sa Alma Ata, health is a basic human right and service is given as a human right, as something that we are entitled to. Pero, pagdating sa Astana, naging commodity ng healthcare. Health services, healthcare can be standardized, bound packaged, and then procured. Binibigyan mo ng presyo. Tapos, yung pasyente, consumer na siya. Kaya nga, di ba, client list na, hindi na patient list. At ang masakit niyan, kahit tayo, hindi tayo tinatawag na health professionals, ang tawag na sa atin, healthcare providers. Everything is transactional. Now, yan yung sinasabing neoliberalism in health. According to Vicente Navarro, there are 6 aspects of it at masasabi nating neoliberalism sa kalusugan, sa sistema sa Pilipinas. Una, there's a decline in public health expenditure. Tama. lumiliit yung budget natin para sa sistema pangkalusugan. Lumalaki yung privatization of healthcare services, number 2. Yung in 3, in the impoverishing when not dismantling of public health infrastructures. Lahat ng DOH hospitals hindi naman binibigyan ng sapat na budget. Naghihirap sila, kailangan silang humanap ng sarili nilang pondo. For full mobility of health professionals from developing to developed countries. So, gaya nangyayari sa Pilipinas, health professionals natin, mula sa atin, papunta sa developed countries. Kung saan sila kikita ng mas malaki. Number 5, kabaliktaran naman. Full mobility of medical equipment and drugs from developed countries to developing countries. Tawag dyan social dumping. Mapasok dito yung mga gamot sa Pilipinas galing sa mayaman. And number 6, full recovery of the biological and behavioral-centric view of medicine. Diba? Ano nga sa atin? Anong tinuturo? Madalas. Kaya maraming diabetes, hypertension ay poor health habits, poor diet. I'm sure that's not entirely wrong. But it's blaming the patient for choices that they are not really free to make. Diba? Hindi tinitignan yung social aspect. Hindi tinitignan yung economic aspects. Hindi tinitignan yung social determinants of health. Now, the social origins of poor health demand radical solutions. Yes, even revolutions. And I'm not afraid to say that because we're in the academia. Right? We have to say what needs to be said. And fear is not an option. So, fighting for a better healthcare system is good, but it's not. Kahit anong klaseng healthcare system ang usin natin, ang gusto natin, hindi siya sasapat kung nahihiwalay yan sa sistema pang-politikal at pang-ekonomiya ng Pilipinas. And when we say health is political, it doesn't mean na aasan lang tayo sa susunod na election. That's just a wrong interpretation of health. In fact, elections have been exposed to be inutile, useless in creating change. If you look at the landscape of politicians who may run in the next elections, may makikita ba tayo inspiring leader? May nakikita ba tayo person who we can rally around to take us out of this rut we're in? Isipin natin. I mean, sure, there could be somebody like Vico Soto, but for every Vico Soto, there's 1,001 who are exactly opposite him. Right? You have people like Tulfo, Robin Padilla, Dr. De La Rosa. So we must help. No, change must come from us. It can't be from outside. We must be the change we want. And it's not us that will empower people. We need to help people realize that power resides in them. Kaya sa amin, hindi namin tinuturo na pinagbabawalan ng sabihin, we empower people. We don't. Power resides in people already. We just need to awaken that power in them, to remind them that the Constitution is a covenant between the people and government, mainly because government realizes that power resides in the people. And we need to work, if we want to have a good healthcare system, we need to work for a better society. Not just has freedom and general democracy, but more social justice. So, I think this is my last slide. Marami sa inyo nag-isip, ano ba ang magagawa ko bilang estudyante? Kaya magagawa ko? Marami ka magagawa kung gusto mo. Kaya mahalaga magpasya ka muna kung handa ka na ba ang kumilos. Because it's not a laundry list of what you can do. It begins with, are you willing to make the change now? Because that laundry list will look different if you're willing to commit to it. Sabi nga ni Albert Camus, life is the sum of our choices, of your choices. And there is no happiness, and the things we believe in are different from the things we do. Consistent lang tayo sa tunay na values natin sa buhay. And I think this is my last slide. Maraming salamat at magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Andito yung references ko at maraming salamat po.
And thank you, Doc Sheen. So class, you may now ask your questions if you have any questions.
Or comments, Dr. Ronnie, kasi baka naman disagree sa sinabi ko. Okay lang naman yun. This is
Comment.
a safe space, di ba? We can have a discussion. If you totally disagree with me, that's fine. Okay. Sagutin ko itong isang question sa chat box. Doc, I often hear people from our town talk about financial assistance from the legislators. I wonder if this is under some program or is it just out of their own pocket. When it comes to legislators or any politician for that matter, ayaw nila maglabas ng pera mula sa sarili ng bulsa. Kaya mas galante ang isang politiko malabang hindi niya pera yan. Pag pera niya na yan, mas kuripot na siya. That said, pag legislators, we're talking about senators and congressmen, or those in Congress, representatives. Meron kasi silang special program, yung pinag-uusapan, yung medical assistance for indigent patients, na pinaglalaban niya kasi nagbibigay ng power sa mga legislators, magbigay ng pera sa mahihirap na pasyente. Pero ang tanong kasi, bakit kailangan lumapit sa politiko, lalo sa mga kongresista at senador, ng isang pasyente para humingi ng tulong sa pagpapagamot niya o sa services na kailangan bayaran. Mali yun yung konsepto niya. Kasi kung gumagana yung healthcare system natin, hindi siya dapat namamroblema kung saan niya kukunin yung pera para magpagamot. I mean, that is the optimal goal that we want. Ang isang Pilipino magpapatingin without thinking na magkano kaya babayaran ko dito? O magkano kaya ang gagastusin ko dito? Kasi deterrent yan sa mga Pilipino. Kahit sabihin pang may PhilHealth. Kahit yung PhilHealth card mo, isang poster na malaki. Pag walang health facility na mura sa paligid mo, hindi magagamit yan. Walang silbi ang PhilHealth. In fact, PhilHealth is not a driver. PhilHealth coverage is not a driver for many of the poor to go seek health services or seek health care. Kasi takot nga sila na kahit pa paano maglalabas pa rin sila ng pera mula sa bulsa nila. And that's true. Kaya, para masagot yung tanong na yun, it's not from their own pockets. It's a budget allocated to them by government. It's discretionary on their part. And that's sad. Kasi bakit may ibibigay sa legislators? Para mo nang sinabi, sige, gamitin mo ito para mas maging guwapo, maganda kayo. Diba? It's just a system of maintaining patronage politics. That should be eliminated. Sure, sa ngayon may natutulungan yung GLs, yung guarantee letters. Kaya lang, hindi tayo dapat umasa sa ganyan. This has to change. Hindi pwedeng ganito. Sana nasagot. Okay, another question. If you were the DOH secretary, what is the first thing that you would address? There's a lot of things that need addressing. What change would have the biggest impact to get them going towards better healthcare system? Ang hirap ng tanong niya. Kasi dalawa yung gusto natin naman. Pag gusto nating ayusin definitively yung mga problema, that's going to take time. If we're going to want immediate impact, then medyo token ka agad yung gagawin natin. Kung ako, dalawa agad yung gagawin ko. I will work towards reversing government. Centralized lots of units. Problema mo, kaya ayaw na marami yan, kasi medyo gunggong din ang DOH. Hindi naman siya maayos din eh. But, at least when we hold people accountable, without devolution, you only hold the DOH accountable. With devolution, you hold every local government unit accountable. That's hard to do right now. Ako, gagawin kong devolving health services once we have political maturity and once we have a better political system. Political reforms must follow before devolution is implemented. So that's yung una kong gagawin. It's a long term, pero walang impact yan, di ba? So ang una kong gagawin na impact, siguro para may impact, gagawin ko yung ginawa niyan. Gagawin ko yung ginawa dito sa i-regularize ko lahat ng nasa healthcare system ng contractor at mag-hire ako ng mas maraming health personnel. Sisiguraduhin ko na lahat ng health facilities may sapat na tao. Kasi walang silbi ang isang health facility kung wala sapat na tao. Pero kahit maliit na health facility kung may sapat na tao, tatak. I think those are the two things off the top of my head that need to be done. The rest, we need to look at yan. Low-lying fruit, siguro pipilitin ko lahat ng EMRs maging interoperable. Pero those are, walang impact yan, hindi yan sexy. Hindi siya, uy, galing, diba? Walang ganun. Pero those things need to be done. That's what I'm doing. Salamat, Maris. Si Donna Liz, you may, sorry, kalakot tanong. Okay. Jacinth, Dok, ano bang kayo pa yung pwede in the future to contribute? Kasi hindi finish yung research with it. What institutes po yung mag-limit ng usunta? Hindi ko sagutin. Kasi you're asking question. And ako, what makes the most impact is what makes you happiest to serve. I mean, kung papasok ka sa isang field na hindi mo naman gusto, pero gusto magkaroon ng impact, maaaring hindi ka ba masaya? Isip mo na sa kang field masaya. And make a difference in that field that you're in. Right? I wanted to be a thoraco-vascular surgeon. Like 2 years lang ako sa Mindanao, and I found it. Sarap pala ng buhay dito. Tapos may magagawa. I didn't go. I want to be happy as a doctor. The doctors who say, what's your leader of the time, they're content with that. That's a personal choice again. So kung gusto mo magkaroon ng impact, personal choice mo to go beyond what you're doing, to find ways to go beyond your field. But first, be happy. You cannot contribute to changing the world if you're unhappy in the field. So, halimbawa, napaka-boring na pinili mo, research yun ang pupunta dyan, pakahirap kasi, or clinical epidemiology. I mean, how many people go there? But, if you're happy, you can make your research matter. You can make your data matter. Nasa sa iyo. So, I think, walang one-size-fits-all answer din sa tanong. Nasagot ko pa. Lagi mo isipin, pag papasok ka sa isang field, doon ka ba magiging masaya? Doon mo ba makikita yung papel mo bilang doktor na nakakatulong sa ibang tao? Ngayon, pag doon mo na nakita yung sarili mo at masaya ka doon, at kung gusto mo pa rin mag-create ng mas malaki impact, nakakahanap ka rin pa. Kasi nandun sa puso mo. Diba? Pero kung pumasok ka sa isang field na nilamon ka, na wala yung idealismo mo, medicina, I'm sorry, mahirap. You have to be true to yourself to be able to impact. Sasagot ko doon sa question. Antonina Rose, considering na po most of the problem of the system, how is it looking po kaya sa future of the healthcare? You are the future of healthcare. You tell me. The future of healthcare in the Philippines is not people sitting right now governing the healthcare system. It's not even with the people sitting right now governing the country. The future of the healthcare system, the future of this country, is reliant on you, who will inherit this country from us. And maybe not, mas bata pa si Dr. Wangko, tanda ako sa kanya. So, you will have to make that decision. Kung nakikita niyo yung mali ngayon, gagawin niyo na. Don't wait for others, other leaders, and whoever, to change it for you. That's not going to happen. Many people have made that mistake before. They're still making that mistake now. Okay. Also, don't wait till you become a doctor before you act. Yan pala yung lagi ko nakakalimutan sa buhay. Alam niya, as you move beyond your medical education to your medical practice, it becomes less and less viable for you to make an intentional move to go outside the box. Why? Ngayon, estudyante tayo. Ano pa yung problema mo? Tapos sa bako, matututo ba ako? Tapos ba ako sa next linggo? Mga ganun, di ba? Pag doktor ka na, ano yung problema mo? Career, future. Pag consultant ka na, problema mo, practice, family. Lumalaki yung kinoconsider mo. So kung hindi mo magawa ngayon, don't expect you're going to be able to do it when you're done or when you're a consultant. You're going to say, you're going to tell yourself, hey, I'm going to make an impact when I'm going to be a big shot cardiologist or something. That's not going to happen. By the time you become a big shot cardiologist, you have too many things to consider that will weigh in on your decisions to act, but you're probably not going to. It doesn't happen overnight na magkakaroon ka ng lakas ng loob, kumilos, to call out things, to speak truth to power. That doesn't happen overnight. That is something you build on. You do little things first, and then you become more confident. It's like a child walking. Right? If the child doesn't take the first step, they're not going to be able to run. Kahit bumagsak siya, tatayo pa rin siya, tatakbo pa rin. Ulit, diba? Ganun tayo. Hindi yan biglang nakaupo ka, tapos bata, biglang nakaupo, tapos biglang tumatakbo na. Ganun. So if you're afraid to act now, when you have less to lose, how are you going to be more courageous when you have so much more to lose? Yun lang siguro. How do you communicate? Nandito lang sa chat box. Sorry, Sir Ronnie. Baka may gusto mag-raise ng hand. Pakisabi mo na sa akin.
Ox lang.
Inajak ko na yung session.
Nagdidiretso na sa inyo yung ano eh. So, hindi rin natin nakikita yung question.
Inajak ko na yung pagka-host mo. Sorry. How do you
hindi namin nakikita yung question kasi nakadiretso sa'yo.
Sa akin ba nakadiretso? Okay, sorry. How do you communicate to address vaccine hesitancy in lower income communities? Well, proof of concept, it works. Talk to people in the communities. They're hesitant because there are reasons that are practical and real. Hindi natin masosolve yung vaccine hesitancy sa likod ng desk. Go to the communities, talk to them. Bakit wala silang tiwala sa bakuna? Ano nangyari? Saan sila nagkulang? Saan tayo nagkulang? Saan sila nagkulang? Anong nila alam? So many things. Right? We cannot talk about vaccine hesitancy without going down to the communities. It's not something we can do vicariously. There's 1,001 reasons why people have become more vaccine hesitant. Well, part of that is the more information's out there, the dumber people choose to be, because there's just too many information out there. But the sadder part is the more information's out there, the more intolerant we become. Right? Siguro may mga dahilan sila na maaaring dahilan past experiences with vaccine, o wala lang isang oras, hindi nabibigyan ng panahon. Dahil busy sila sa ibang gawain. That lack of time is not something you should judge. It's just something you could work around. Diba? Ngayon, kung handa silang pagbakuna, idalhin yung bakuna sa kanila. Diba? Pero kailangan natin intindihin bakit may vaccine hesitancy. Again, these things did not happen overnight. Yung mga nasa generation ko, naalala pa si Flavier kasi yung Oakland Alice disease, attack centers. That made health promotion really something that is entrenched in your brain. Kung maganda yung health promotion mo, decades later, naalala mo siya. We don't have that now. Right? Nakikita mo ba yung health secretary natin nag-uusap sa health promotion? Diba? Wala. Wala ganun. At when we talk about it, people should actually believe you because you walk the walk. You don't just talk the talk. Ngayon, kung yung health secretary mo, hindi bumababa sa komunidad, kausap lang niya ang kapwa niyo to 5 months to go. Nothing else that. In the first place, asa na ba health promotion office in DOH? Yun siguro ang mga kailangan ayusin. Okay, I think that was the last question. Sir Ron. Wala namang question sa akin po. Sir, wala namang question. Wala na pong question sa chat box. Nasagot ko na lahat. Ano pa ba?
Ang wala na yata. Are there any more questions, guys? We still have a lot of time. We still have 40 minutes remaining.
Dati kasi naubusan tayo ng oras sa Ababans.
Oh, last year.
Sabi ko, medyo bibilisan ko ngayon para kumita na. At least nasagot ko lang. So lang naman matapos tayo na nakamilis pa magtanong. Wala na, hindi ko always. Sir, nabigay ko naman sa inyo yung copy ng slides ko. So, students can.
Yeah. The copy of the slides is in Canvas, so you can access the slides in Canvas. Any more questions, guys? Sa yung chance nyo na makapagtanong kay Doc Chin. Pwede rin kayo magtanong ng showbiz.
Okay lang, wag lang math. May naksuma. Okay.
I guess wala nang question, Doc Chin. So I guess that's it. So again, we thank you very much, Doc Jean, for your lecture and for approving our invitation always every year to provide guidance and information and kalinawan sa totoong nangyayari sa problema ng kalusugan sa Pilipinas. Yeah, so maraming salamat, Doc Jean.
Thank you.
And
thank you sa ating lahat. Maraming salamat sa hapon. Maraming salamat, Sir Dr.
next year ulit.
Everyone from the department. I'm on the list. Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you din, sir.
So I guess yun announcement for the class next week. We have our first unit exam. So you will have a lecture first. Then after the lecture, tsaka magkakaroon ng unit exam. So next week. Okay. So again, thank you very much, Doc Sheen.
Okay. Exit ako. Salamat, sir. Salamat po sa ating lahat. Thank you.
And that's the end of the class, guys. The cookie, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for those asking about the evaluation. Ilagay nyo na lang pong name kung wala pong lumalabas. Name na lang po ni Dr. Wangko. Basta indicate the topic na lang. Okay. Wala daw po sa Google Form, sir, ni Dr. Nisperas. Thank you. Kindly tell your classmates.
Pwedeng others doon.
Sir, wala daw. Check ko na lang. Apa. We'll just indicate the topic na lang. Kindly tell your classmates who already logged out na lang. Ha? That will be a confirmation of your attendance this afternoon. Thank you.
Bye, guys.